I told you not to read it. I was like, Dad, don't read the book. And you were like, oh my God, no, not reading the book.
No, I had
What a calamity.
Well, I had just bought it, in fairness. You know, it doesn't have to be Mother's Day to celebrate your mum. You give her a call sometime, guys.
Yeah. Give her a call, Dad. You know the token Asian guy?
Oh, he's that guy. Okay, the guy from Disturbia. Is that the same guy?
No, that's a different guy.
Oh. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, anime, comic books, video games, food, music, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with H, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Tavi. Hello, Tavi.
Hi, Dan. Hi, everyone. How's everything? What you up to?
Well, at the time of recording, this is before Mother's Day, the week before Mother's Day, but at the time of releasing this episode, it will be the day after Mother's Day. So I guess I want to prematurely apologize to my mum for not calling her on Mother's Day and forgetting about it, I guess.
Why is this a reoccurring theme on the episodes of you neglecting your parents?
I'm just a notoriously bad son, Tavi. I don't know what to say.
It's funny because they listen to this as well, and it's like, yeah.
That's why I'm apologizing. I wouldn't apologize if you wasn't listening. No, I'm sure I remember. I'm sure I won't forget again. You got any plans for your mum?
Probably just keep it chill. Just something at home. I think we'll just like do a pretty small gathering of a family thing because
do you do gifts? You and your sister?
Yeah, we usually buy something for mum.
You don't make like a macaroni card or something?
What are you, like 5 years old? No, I don't make macaroni. I was going to say macaron. Like macaron cards on it.
That would be impressive.
That would be fuck, man. Like, you know, I mean, I'm not going to cook macarons. I do need to buy a gift, which you've just reminded me. So
I've given up on gifts. Honestly, for both my parents, I don't think they enjoy receiving gifts.
Really?
They like every gift that I get them, they just don't use, I guess. Maybe I'm just bad at buying gifts. I don't know. But like they just seem to have everything. I don't know what they want. Like,
yeah, true. Yeah, I don't really buy gifts that often anymore. Like, and people don't buy gifts to me, which is fine because usually if I want something, I'll just buy it.
Right.
And then then I'll get it as a gift.
Just give me money, I reckon. Just I'll go out and get it myself if I need anything.
No, I just like, I just like chilling with whoever. Like I kind of just like going out for my birthday, which we haven't done for the past 2 years because of Corona. So, but yeah, not to take away from the mothers. But yeah, if people would probably be listening to this post Mother's Day because it's a Monday release.
That's right.
Mother's Day is coming up this Sunday. But yeah, to all the mothers out there, thanks for looking after us.
Unless you're not living in Australia and Mother's Day is on a different day for you.
Oh, yeah.
But, it doesn't have to be Mother's Day to celebrate your mum. You give her a call sometime, guys.
Yeah. Give her a call, Dad. Yeah. Maybe you should come back home and visit them someday.
That will never happen. They'll have to come to me.
But yeah, on to the fact that it is Mother's Day, we decided to review something that has, well, basically a mother as a main character. But, keeping in theme with the kind of generational story, something that we can owe to our mothers and fathers as well. We are reviewing Pachinko, which is Apple TV Plus. Is it Apple TV Plus or Apple? Yeah, Apple TV.
I think Apple TV, but there is a plus sign after the TV, so maybe Apple TV Plus.
They produced this show, which is based off.
It's based off a novel by Min Jin Lee.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it's basically the story of a Korean migrant family, which spans from 1910s to the 1980s as they moved to Osaka, Japan.
Spans across 3 generations of the family, I believe.
Yeah, but I think the show and the book mostly centers around Sunja. Most of it is through her lens. So, yeah, this is why we decided to kind of cover the show. Yeah, Pachinko. It's directed by Kogonada, which is a pseudonym. He's never revealed his real name. He's a South Korean American director. And Justin Chon, who basically got his start from Twilight. But not to sully his name.
Which Twilight did he do? Did he do the one with...
No, he didn't. He was the actor. You know the token Asian guy?
Oh, he's that guy.
Yeah,
okay, the guy from Disturbia. Is that the same guy?
No, that's a different guy. You're just remembering all these Asians wrong.
They have the same haircut, man.
No, they're different guys. I think that's Leonardo Nam. He was like an Australian.
Okay. And who's this
Asian
guy? Joseph Hong.
Joseph Huang.
Justin Lin.
Justin Lin. Yeah, Justin Lin.
I thought he was busy with
Justin
Fast
Chong. Yeah, he got his gig starting as an actor in Twilight, but he still does acting, but he does directing now, and he's probably most known for his recent release Blue Bayou, which I haven't seen yet. Which looks pretty good. But his other works actually look quite good as well. I just watched trailers for one of his movies called Gook. I think it's about these two Asian brother shopkeepers who like befriend an 11-year-old black girl during the era or the day of the LA riots.
Okay.
So I haven't seen any of his work, but I'm pretty familiar with Kogonada. He got started like making video essays for like Sight and Sound magazine and
cool.
The Criterion company. So the Criterion Collections, the company that does all like the really art house film preservation. But yeah, he's directed 2 films that I know of. Columbus with John Cho, which is really good. Really, really well shot. And recently he has done a film for A24 called After Yang, which I haven't seen yet, but it looks good as well. But yeah, just looking at these guys' body of work, these guys know movies like really, really well.
Fairly well established. And it's kind of cool that they come from different facets of cinema, you know? Interesting. That's cool. So even though you've read the book...
I've read the book, yeah. And I told you not to.
You told me not to read it.
I told you not to read it. I was like, Dad, don't read the book. And you were like, oh my God, no, not reading the book.
No, I had
a calamity.
Well, I had just bought it, in fairness. I was about to read it. But you're like, no, don't read it. I want your unbiased opinion about the TV show alone. So I guess while we may make some references to the book in comparison to the TV show from time to time, because the TV show only has 1 season, so it hasn't covered the whole book, I guess we won't be talking about anything that happens in the book that hasn't happened yet in the TV show, right? Yeah. And I guess... I mean, there's not really anything to spoil in the TV show, right? But we will keep it fairly spoiler-free, I guess, or spoiler-light.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we will talk spoilers at least about the show. And if there's any other spoilers that I accidentally say, I guess you just have to edit them out and then just have to bury that in your mind when you watch the second season. Because this show has been renewed for a second season.
Am I not allowed to read the book until we've finished the second season?
No, you can read the book. It's fine.
Okay.
Because I initially thought that this was a limited series, so I thought that this series was only going to be 1 season, and then it had occurred to me more than halfway through the season, it's like there's a lot missing in this. I think I was confused because the first differing element from the book onto the screen is that it's not told in a chronological manner like it is in the book. So the book is completely linear, so it goes straight from
starts from
1910
Sunja as a kid and goes all the way until she's an old granny, right?
Yeah, and the modern day Tokyo stuff is focused on Solomon, which is her grandson. And yeah, that kind of threw me off because it is basically the very beginning, almost like the tail end of the book.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
that's why I was like, oh, okay, so it must intersect at some point.
Sure.
Because I'm like, okay. But then, yeah, it became clear that it wasn't going to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, what are your general thoughts just on the season as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a pretty strong show. Both you and I had to binge it in order to record this podcast on time. I don't think it's the ideal show to binge. I definitely agree with that. Just due to the tone, the subject matter, and perhaps the pacing as well. I think I would have gotten a bit more enjoyment out of it if I had just taken my time to kind of ponder each episode after watching it. The back and forth of it, I think I've heard that said as a criticism by most people that I've talked to about the show. Because, the people that have read the book is like, oh, it's different from the book. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it did throw me a little bit at the start. Like, the way the TV show works is it jumps between, like, 1989, Solomon's story, in which Sunja, the granny, is a big part of, right? And then in the early episodes, it also jumps between that and Sunja as a child. So what is that, 1920s?
I think it's like... because it actually starts off with her father.
Yes.
But, yeah, Sunja is born, I think, probably in 1920 or early... or mid-1910s. I'm not 100% sure.
Sure, early 20th century, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're jumping between the two, and I guess that wasn't too bad, but I think it was when we got to the character of, like, Lee Min-ho's character. What's his name again? Is that Kansu? Hansu?
Ko Hansu.
Yeah.
Ko Hansu, yeah.
So when Sunja is kind of a young lady and Hansu is kind of, like, courting her, I guess, and then it's still jumping between that and Solomon's story. And to me, like, those two eras were not distinguishable enough. And I think that led me to kind of, like, fall out of it a bit.
Oh, okay.
Just because the way they cut, like, there's no kind of, like, indication of what time you're watching at any point, right? Like, they don't always show the year on screen, you know? You kind of have to just take it from the visual cues, but as well as the characters present in the story, right? But, like, to me, those two eras were not visually distinguishable enough to me. Like, Hansu is, like, wearing a suit and he's pretty, like, slick looking, right? And his haircut is, like, something that you could pull off. Like, his whole look is something you could pull off in the 80s, you know? So when they're cutting between that time period and Hansu's time period, Solomon's time period, it just wasn't obvious enough for me to follow it that easily. Like, sometimes I'd be watching a scene for a few seconds before realizing, oh, okay, we're back at Solomon's bit. Yeah, but in later episodes, it was fine. I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I didn't have an issue following that. I think for me, I could kind of just tell, but with the production design.
Because you'd expect them to use some kind of, like, different filter or different, like, coloring.
Well, I think the coloring for, like, the Japanese era is slightly more pronounced. But, like, this could also be the fact that I have read the book, so I don't know.
I found it a lot more noticeable in the later episodes where Sunja moves to Osaka. And then, like, even, like, the costume design, and I think the coloring changes as well. It definitely looks a lot more different to the 89 setting than when she was still living in Korea.
I think it's a little bit more washed out in its coloring.
Yeah. And, like, because the costuming when Sunja is living in Korea, they're like all the Korean people are kind of wearing hanboks. They look like it could just be like a countryside area, you know, to me. Like it's not necessarily an indication of a long time in the past. I thought anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, aside from that minor criticism, like I think the performances are really good. Like there are a lot when the show is good, it's like really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you said that to me last night. I said that back. Yeah.
And I guess we'll get into like our favorite bits and stuff. But how about you? What do you think about the show overall?
Yeah. Well, I think it's clear to me that this show has American money behind it because
looks good,
the production design is like stunning. You know, it looks really good and it looks accurate as well. It's very clear with its like color grade and the way the film is shot that these guys know how to compose a frame because some of it is just like really stunning to look at. And you can tell it's a little bit different from your average K-drama because of how like you can tell how much money has been put into production.
It looks better than a K-drama.
Yeah. It looks better than an average K-drama. But like, I mean, people know I love Korean movies, so that's fine. But you know, I mean, that's what the whole podcast is about, really.
Sure.
But yeah, the performances are fantastic. I think both Sunjas, who is played Grandma Sunja is played by Yoon Ya-jung. I saw her in Minari, so she's the grandma in that, and she got a fair bit of fame from that role, and I think she won an Oscar. So she does really well. But I think really the standout is young Sunja Kim Min-ha, who I've never seen her in a role before, but she is perfectly casted. I think, like from the book to the screen, like that is as accurate as you can get. Like someone who has a certain striking beauty, but it's not like a standout. It's someone who has gone through hardships, and you can kind of see it in her face, and it's just like,
I mean, not just her face, but also kind of her stature as well. Like when she's kind of meek, like she has that stance, her shoulders are kind of hunched, and she seems like she's trying to make herself look smaller. Just so that like she doesn't draw any unwanted attention. Really
good. I hope she gets some form of recognition in like awards and stuff. I mean, this show has been critically acclaimed anyway, but I hope that, you know, she's noticed because she does a smashing job. Lee Min-ho is pretty good as
this
Ko
is
Hansu.
He's in his element, right?
He
made a career out of playing like rich tricks. That's his bread and butter, mate.
I actually haven't seen too many of his.
We got to be careful. He's got a pretty strong fan base.
I've seen him in a movie called Gangnam Blues, which is like a gangster movie, which I quite enjoyed. There's a lot of him stabbing people in the dick, which was really fun to watch.
Cool.
But no, he does pretty well. And the rest of the cast, like everyone is pretty well casted.
I like the guy that plays Tom Andrews.
Oh yeah, he's the dude from what's that show about the robots?
Westworld,
I first saw him.
Jimmy Simpson,
yeah. He does his best Japanese. It's like American Japanese.
Do you think that's his best Japanese? Or do you think he was putting on that accent to sound like an American that's been living in Japan for a while?
I don't know, because I don't know anything about... I don't really know much about Jimmy Simpson, whether he's fluent or not.
Yeah, because the accent, it's a bit of a caricature, I think, of like the way like... you would expect like an American to speak Japanese, but we've lived in Japan and we've worked with Americans, and some of them like they have a decent Japanese accent going on. Like I've never heard anybody speak Japanese like Jimmy Simpson's character does in this show.
Yeah, maybe because like this show like has 3 languages, English, Korean, Japanese. So this is a pretty like astonishing production, because it's an Apple TV, so it's an American production, but for a company, an American company, to put this much money into a show where most of it is not in English and it's in different languages, so they've had to subtitle it in 3 different colors.
And it's not like one character speaks one language, another character speaks another language. Like most of the characters can speak Japanese and Korean.
Yeah, fucking hell. That'd be so hard to find.
And in some cases, English as well, like fluent English too. So, and it's not the case of like they'll have a long spiel in Korean and then switch to Japanese. Like a lot of the time they're switching mid-sentence or, mid-conversation. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to put, it's a lot of dedication on a lot of people's part,
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, like, I'm trying to look for Asian actors, someone that is just an Asian, and that's already fucking hard to do, So you're going to find an Asian who can speak Korean, Japanese, and English for, like, your leads, and for the kids as well. That's, like, damn, man, like, props to the casting director, just had his work cut out for him or her.
Some actors can do it better than others. Like, maybe Jimmy Simpson just, learnt his lines, and maybe he doesn't know any Japanese at all. But even that is like would be a pretty good feat if that's what he had to do.
Like, I always knew that the actors who were not speaking the native tongue, it was going to sound a bit different because in the book, everyone is pretty much fluent. But like I said, like, good luck getting your actors to just learn a new language, and then it's hard to do. So, and it didn't weigh down on the show for me at all, so like it was really like cool to hear and cool to see like such care taken into the production and such maybe trust from the producers as well. So I've wailed on Mac products in the past, but you know me, I'm a Windows guy. Getting used to Mac, but I'm like, always in my heart a Windows guy. But give credit to Apple, for producing these like high quality show.
That said, I'm not a huge fan of the platform Apple TV Plus. I'll be honest. Like, I had multiple issues streaming this show on my computer with Apple TV. Like, there were lag issues with the website. Sometimes, like, you'd click the little thumbnail and the episode just wouldn't appear.
Okay.
And sometimes, like, the subtitles would just show for like a second and then disappear, so like the characters would continue speaking, but I wouldn't have any idea what they're talking about. So good on you for making the show, but fucking fix your platform, Apple.
So yeah, I think the show is definitely well worth the watch. I definitely agree with you in it's not a binging show. There are some fairly heavy themes that are at play. And some heavy emotions. But yeah, definitely give it a watch.
It's a show that kind of lingers with you as well, right? So.
I think my criticisms of the show, and this is coming from someone who has read the book, but I did try to separate myself from my knowledge of the book and the TV show. I felt at points that the show was elaborating on aspects that I didn't really find that interesting, specifically Solomon's arc.
You mentioned you weren't a fan of Solomon's.
Yeah. I really loved all the Sunja period pieces. And even her in As the Old Age, like I really connected with her character. But Solomon's arc is much more corporate.
Sure.
Well, it is in the book. They've really like ham-fisted it in the show, and it's kind of boring to watch. So at that point, it kind of lost me.
Okay. I didn't mind it though, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
I think the scene in the boardroom where he's trying to get the granny to sign.
Yeah, that scene was good.
Pretty good. Yeah,
yeah, I liked that scene, but all the stuff that was leading up to it, I didn't really enjoy, and I didn't really care about too much. I did actually like once all that was over, I was enjoying his arc more.
When Hana
especially
gets introduced, okay.
Because, Hana, she's a kind of a mysterious character where I think she's mostly underdeveloped in the show. That's probably a spoiler section thing, so maybe I'll get back to Hana. But just in terms of its, like, technicality, like, there's a lot of really, really beautiful shots, but then there's also some very kind of not very interesting ways that some sequences went. Like, sometimes there'd be two characters talking to each other, and then they'd just be standing there, and then it's just like your shot, reverse shot, like it's maybe a close-up of the
and like the background is kind of blurry, so you can't really see what's there.
So like, they've done it really well in this show, and I'm not sure if that was in the studio or if it was like actually them there, because I think the guys lit it really well. So they've really sold the idea that the actors are in their present, like in the studio.
Same space.
But like if you're just doing that back and forth, it gets kind of it's not very visually interesting, and it's kind of unnatural. I think one of the examples, I think it's like one of the later episodes, I think Solomon is talking to his friend Haruki, and then it's just like they're just standing there at the station and there's no one around, so it just looks a bit flat, and they're just talking about stuff. Well, the story that's going on is good. It's just, I wouldn't say it's lazy, because like it's definitely, I mean, people definitely cared who worked on this show, but it's just like not the most interesting way to express that.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that's like, because it's a pretty big production and there's a lot of money going in, so it's just
you gotta save money somewhere. Yeah. I mean, and especially like when you're comparing it to other scenes that are just really, really beautiful, like obviously, the scenes that are lacking are going to stand out a bit more as lacking.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting, because I was just having a look at who has directed which episodes, because we're talking about some scenes where there are like longer takes and like more like, I guess luscious cinematography, whereas there's some more kind of like dramatic stuff, because Kogonada was first writing like his articles about like a Japanese director, Hirokazu Koreda, whose way of telling a narrative is not very many cuts, long shots where you can see like the characters, but like with very slight camera movements, so you don't get disinterested in the scene that you're watching. And it's a lot more like subtle, I guess, where they're just judging from Justin Chon's work, just from the trailers. His stuff looks really good too. But it's definitely a lot more like dramatic, where it's like kind of easier to digest. Like, what emotions you're supposed to take in. Which is, I got a question here for you, which I didn't put in the outline. But like, would you classify this as an American TV show or a Korean TV show or K-drama?
That is hard, because
it's a pretty hard one, yeah.
The story is definitely a Korean story, right? But I would say production-wise, I would have to say it's more an American production. Just the look and the feel of it and the money behind it and the direction, I think. I don't know. Like, it feels more like I'm watching an American show than I am watching a Korean show. But that, like, I could believe I'm watching a Korean movie. That's the kind of money that I'm thinking about. But just the level of polish, I think, is more akin to an American TV show.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. And for the reasons I was talking about before with like shot reverse shot and all that other shit, like it's a very American way to tell a story. It's like, not to sound, like I'm kind of having a go at anyone, but it's like you change shots often because you don't want to lose the attention of the people that are watching.
Sure.
And I think generally Western audiences don't like having their attention kept for a long period of time. So these that's why it's edited in that manner.
Yeah, trying to hold the attention of the TikTok generation. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Well, there's like in a lot of like Asian cinema that I've noticed, they like to linger on shots. This may be due to just like, production and time, because it's just much easier to get like one long take and just move on with coverage. I think Bong Joon-ho works like that, is what I've heard. He actually doesn't shoot that much coverage. But yeah, like when we talked about Ito a while ago, where there's a shot of just the two characters sitting on the staircase for a really long time, but it's still very compelling because you're just watching the acting. So first and foremost, this show, while it is a Korean story, is definitely aimed for the American market, and that's fair enough. But I think it kind of suffers on the story a little bit, which is another reason why I think it's that way as well, with the telling, like the jumping back and forth between the 80s and the period piece. Because like if people aren't seeing something that's a bit more modern, it's like, I don't want to watch this.
Right, okay.
Because no one's really care about the Korean.
Could be a bit
I
of that.
definitely like that shit more. But yeah, I have a feeling like no one's ever going to admit to it. Could also be a contract thing. Like, you need to have the actor be in this much of the story.
That's
like,
right.
They've signed on for this many episodes. So it's a multitude of reasons.
I mean, not many, because we're spanning quite a long time, right? I think it kind of makes sense in the context of the show for them to jump back and forth. And it also allows them to kind of link story elements together as well, which I'm guessing is a point of the book, right? It's to show... I haven't read the book, obviously, but I have a feeling it's kind of trying to make it seem like history repeats itself at times, or that the past has an effect on the present as well. And when you're jumping between the past and the present, I think they can establish that link a bit more clearly. Otherwise, you're relying on the audience to remember a certain story element, so that when it comes back later, then they can kind of connect it in their minds. But if a long time between episodes has passed, the audience... you risk the audience forgetting about those elements of the story, right? So the connection
you got to keep your attention span. But no, I do agree with that, and I do like how it does link those story elements. I think I agree with that, and honestly, for the most part, they do the jumping back and forth pretty well. But I think ultimately it is a criticism, and this is having read the book. There are some story beats that have been revealed from jumping back and forth that lessen some of the really impactful moments in the book. Which I can't say it because I'm not sure if you picked it up, but there's a moment in the book when I read it and it happened. I'm like, fuck, damn. And it really floored me. But because of the jumping back and forth, there's like a character reveals something, and that kind of basically has sucked the drama out of that particular story beat.
Yeah, I guess we'll save it to the spoiler section. Do you have anything?
Yeah.
Should we get into spoilers or?
There was that one question that we should maybe address.
Okay.
This might, we one other difference, and I like to preface this with the difference between the book and the show, is its depiction of Japanese people. Because the show and the book obviously starts off in Japanese occupied Korea. And, you know, if you know history, the Japanese were probably not the most kind to the Koreans. And you definitely know that from watching this show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they won't let you forget about it.
Yeah, so basically everything is the fault of Japanese. But what this was the criticism of the show for me, is that I think if you're not Korean, you're scum almost. Like, the white people aren't really,
isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing I really liked about the book is how, like, not one-sided it was. I felt the book is surprisingly to me not that heavy. I found the book really relaxing to read. It's one of the most calming reads and the fastest reads I've done. It's like 500 pages, but like it goes really quickly. It's really easy to read. But yeah, I didn't find there was too much damning of the Japanese people, but when it does happen in the book, it hits hard, because like you're lulled into a sense that things are going okay, like things are going to be all right.
Yeah.
But then when it happens, it's like, damn, it's not, you know, it's kind of in the background. It's definitely there, but it's not as pronounced as it is in the show.
Yeah, it is very much in the foreground in the show. Like, pretty much every episode alludes to the villainy of Japanese people. And that's in every generation as well, not just in when Sunja's growing up, but even in Solomon's arc. Like, yeah, the Japanese people in his story are quite villainized too. Well, most of them anyway. I felt it was a bit much, to be honest. Obviously, like, I haven't lived through it, right? Like, I think most audience members watching this show would not have lived through the stuff that Sunja has lived through. But, like, just the level of resentment in general throughout the show, I don't know. I feel like it was...
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's like...
It's bordering on racism.
Well, I mean, the show was criticized in Japan for its depiction of Japanese, like, obviously. Japanese audiences didn't really like it.
I mean, it's not like the first time the Japanese people have been villainized in cinema. Like, I've been going through the Ip Man movies, and like every one of the Ip Man movies has a villainous Japanese person in it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not a new thing, but I just thought it might have been a bridge too far in this particular show.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think it's like with today's climate, everyone kind of loves to hate each other as much as it seems like we're trying to bridge a path of peace. People, I think, just generally like to tear each other down.
Yeah, I mean, and it's quite cyclical, isn't it? Because, like, obviously, like, this show, whether or not it was intentional, you know, obviously elements from this show stem from a place where Korean people were persecuted, right? So that drove them towards hating Japanese people.
Yeah.
But then, you know, Japanese people that watch this show are going to be like, oh, Korean people hate us. Let's hate them back, kind of thing, you know?
No, that's... no, I think you're right. What struck me about the novel is quite a lot of the kindness that some of the Japanese show to the new Koreans. You see it in a glimpse, like one of those plot points in the final episode, which we'll maybe talk about a bit later. But yeah, I think the film Minari probably did it the best, really, was like showed that racism, but not in a hateful way. But they alluded to it when the family in that movie goes to the church. People just don't know. And you and I probably have had our fair share of racism in Australia. I've definitely copped it growing up. But, like, you have to remember all the people, I mean, I guess all the white people that have been, like, good to us, you know. We've got a lot of white friends. And, like, I don't hate them. Like, and I'm not going to hold them accountable for, like, every single atrocity that, you know, has happened. I mean, every country in regards to the military, I'm sure, have had their, you know, war crimes and things that they've done. I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
here,
I mean, but
because
the
that's
point
in-
is that there are no countries with clean hands, right?
yeah.
Basically. And, I guess, like I said, it's hard for us to judge because we haven't been through such things, yeah? And they are depicting a time period where, it is quite dire for Korean people due to, Japanese occupation and, that makes it hard for them. They are being treated as second-class citizens, which is bad. That shouldn't have happened. But the way it kind of just ripples throughout the show, like, even in Solomon's arc.
I mean, it's basically the very first thing you see is a white guy basically telling Solomon that he'll never reach the levels of, the hierarchy. Which I think they do it in the book, but it's a lot more subtle. It's just like they don't specifically say that. It's just more like, it's more subtextual, I guess, in how they explain it, which I think is more racist, if you ask me. which is, again, like, I find the book handles these themes in a much more subtle manner. It's a little bit less ham-fisted.
Yeah,
but,
I think if it wasn't like just so in your face, it would have been fine. I think depicting that level of racism is kind of it's a balancing act, and I think in the case of this TV show, they might have over compensated a bit. I don't know.
It could be like, because I said, like, it seems like the market likes watching that at the moment, but it's not really. It's just like, it's a bit of a tired trope now these days. Like, we get it. Like, everyone hates each other now. Let's move on from that, kind of thing. But yeah, should we get into some spoilers?
Sure. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out, Pachinko, good show, I reckon.
Very good show. Don't binge it, is what me and Dan are saying.
Don't binge it. But would you say it's worth getting an Apple TV Plus subscription for? If you haven't, because nobody that I know really has an Apple TV subscription.
I mean, Tragedy of Macbeth is on there, which is
that's
a pretty
true.
good movie.
And Severance, I've heard, is quite good.
Oh yeah, I've heard Severance is good too. Yeah, so
get it
legally. Yeah,
I think you get a 2-week free trial as well. I think I'm still on my 2 weeks of free trial.
Yeah.
So,
But I would say get it to support this show, because it's a really big thing for this bigger company to support something that is not completely non-English.
And everyone's giving it their all as well. The cast and crew, you can see all the work that everybody's put in the high quality of the show, I think.
Yeah. Before we jump into spoilers, I forgot to mention, just watch it for how cool the opening sequence, the opening title is. This is like
good.
Some of the best, one of the best like TV openings I've seen. I didn't expect it to be, because like the show is quite heavy, and it's quite glum, but the TV opening, it starts off with like was it the Grassroots song? Was it Live for Today?
Live for Today,
which is a pretty like popular 1960s song, and I think it's really cool that it is an American song, because it kind of it does kind of give that commentary on like the Western influence on both Korea and Japan, but it's like it's these characters that are kind of just like dancing in a pachinko parlor and just having fun.
Right, yeah.
And it's just like, it just reminds me a lot of like Koreans and Japanese that I have met who just like listen to Western music, not because it's like, not for some political, they just like it because it's cool and it's fine. And I think it's just like I think it's just the energy of the opening, which is interesting because it's like, it's pretty different from the show, but I think it's just the contrast of, like visual elements.
I like the retro vibe of it. It's good.
It's really cool. Like I watched it every time, but
it's probably the most pachinko you see in this show, titled Pachinko, and there's not much pachinko in this show.
There's not really. I think it's kind of getting into that, But yeah, the TV. Watch it. Like if you're not going to watch the show, you should. But if you're not going to watch the show, just watch the opening on YouTube or something because it's pretty cool.
And also that the actor that plays Child Sunja is very good. But she's not in the show much. But she's in the opening every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like all the Sunjas. Yeah, man.
Top notch, man.
Top notch.
All right, let's do spoilers, yeah?
Yeah. There's definitely some new stuff that is not in the books. Ko Hansu's backstory, which is episode 7, which was a really good episode. It's based on the 1923 earthquake that shook Japan.
Kanto earthquake.
Yeah, and like I've read a lot about that particular incident in a lot of other Japanese media and how significant it was. And then to be shortly followed by World War II after that with the Hiroshima bombings. I think it's with I read I think it's Akira Kurosawa's biography where he said he grew up just seeing streets filled with dead bodies because of, the earthquake and the World War II era. And it's just like, damn, man, that's rough, just to be witness to that. And that backstory is, I don't think it's in the book. So him with the family, the American family that has taken him in, and that gangster arc, like, he is a gangster in the book, but like I don't recall them mentioning how he became that way.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I don't know, because like there are a few parts of the TV show where I thought, because I figured the book is from the narrated by Sunja, I guess, right?
It's third person, so yeah.
Okay, so because there were some parts where like there's just no member of Sunja's family present for certain scenes, so I'm thinking like, oh, maybe this is probably something new for the TV show. Like even parts where like Hansu meets Isak for the first time in a tailor shop, and I'm like, oh, Sunja would have no way of knowing that this went down, so this is probably not in the book, maybe. But yeah, the episode 7, the earthquake episode, I thought it was quite good as well. I think also the fact that it was one of those rare episodes where there was no cutting back and forth. Like the whole episode was in one time period, which I found refreshing.
We were talking about how Solomon's arc is, well, I was talking about how it's much more elongated in the show. I don't think the old lady and Sunja meet at all.
Okay.
It's really not that big a deal in the book.
Really?
But they've given her a bit more of an arc. But there's the scene that you were talking about where,
in the boardroom.
There's the boardroom meeting. It's very tense. It's very dramatic.
I both loved and hated that scene. It was so...
Yeah, I think I know why, but then you explain,
just so frustrating, but it's so good. Like I haven't felt that way since watching All of Us Are Dead and what's it called, Namra's like betrayal, infecting that guy. But it's one of those scenes where it's like, oh, I hate you so much, but this is good cinema, so I'll let it pass. The old lady, man, I hate her so much.
Because she says like an important thing, but it's like also like, I mean, come on, man, like you could really use, the kids could use that.
Everybody in that room gets screwed over.
I don't think any of our parents would say no to that if some dude said, we're giving you this much money for your house. Sign me up.
I think if Solomon was in those kids' shoes and his grandma was signing it, he would have definitely said, sign it.
Yeah.
So he just straight up, he lies to this woman because he's been manipulated by these two old ladies into having a conscience. But realistically, nobody would say no to that kind of money. Like, I don't know.
But like, that scene was completely fabricated, so that's not in the novel.
It's a good scene though. I enjoyed it.
I really like the scene where he like kind of runs out in the freedom and listening to the band, and the band's playing like The Cure.
Yeah,
So I thought that was cool because I just like I actually really like the use of music in the show.
There were a couple of times where you think the music is in the background, but then actually somebody is playing it in the studios. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the music in the show. But yeah, like it kind of happens a bit differently in the book. It's basically like because you were talking about how there's not very much Pachinko in Pachinko.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like in the book, it's more like Pachinko is seen as like kind of a shady gangster business.
Yeah.
And it's basically, I think it's probably something that's going to be covered in the second season. But you know that Solomon's dad, well, Sazu, is the owner of a Pachinko parlor. But he's like very straight and narrow. Like
he's
very
portrayed as
straight,
quite like a good dude, right?
Yeah. So it's like he does everything very like legally. Yeah, even like people think he has a bad reputation. Like he doesn't care because he knows that he's like does everything by the book. But like in the book, Solomon just like is struggling to get the sale, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he calls his dad. Basically, it's like, do you reckon you know anyone who might be able to persuade her? Like, you know, like, do you have any friends that can help out?
Yeah.
Like in a like legal manner. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can't really give any more than that because then it'd be spoilers for you.
Sure.
So yeah, it's just a bit different. Like, yeah, she's not really that much of a register, which is like, it's interesting because Hana plays much more of a bigger part in the book, where you see Solomon and her growing up as kids.
Yeah.
And like in the show, she just kind of seems like a bitch that you're like, why would you like this girl? And she's
you only
kind
get a little bit of her backstory. Like they have maybe one or two flashbacks, and both of those flashbacks make her look like a dick. So.
Yeah. She's still fairly insufferable in the book. I spoke with the tester, aka your partner.
Yeah.
And
so it's not
like
her
she
favorite
said, like,
character.
Hannah's a pretty shit character. And Hannah is not a good person, but in the book they spend more time as kids. And I think this would be the hard thing to translate onto an American TV show because they do have some scenes of, you know, intimacy per se that I don't think they would dare try to portray on screen. Sure. But you kind of get a sense of why Solomon likes her. It's kind of just this really weird, enigmatic reason. So I felt a bit more empathy for Hannah in the book. And I did feel sad when she, I guess, eventually does die. I like that scene, actually, when, you know, because she becomes a prostitute and she catches like a STD. So she's kind of... They eventually find her like in the hospital, and you know, Solomon has always talked about taking her to Hawaii, and then like he kind of gives her that last moment to do that. I thought that was a really nice scene. For maybe he's someone who probably didn't really deserve it in the show, but in the book, the character of Naomi is different. She's kind of a colleague, whereas like Solomon actually has kind of have a long-term girlfriend who is Naomi. And like,
in this
it's
show she's kind of just there. She doesn't do much.
Like a lot of the stuff that talks about like that kind of generational gap that happens in the book is with that character, because she talks about in the book, like, I think they have a dinner or something, but it's like, my parents didn't really grow up making kimchi and all this kind of stuff. Like, we grew up eating hamburgers and pasta or whatever. And I thought that was interesting because in this case, it does like address those elements, but I guess they didn't really show it in the show. Like, because that character's gone, basically, or just merged into this character who doesn't really do very much in the show, really.
She
kind of
talks
there.
a bit about being a woman in Japan, but that's about it, I think.
I think, because she's supposed to be an American Korean in the book, but she's a Japanese woman. But they do address that as well, like kind of being a Japanese woman in the society. I don't remember through which characters, but they address that for sure. But yeah, you don't really get to see much of a Korean American experience in this show at all, because it's mostly it's basically Solomon only.
Yeah, I mean, it might be explored in the second season.
Yeah,
I don't know. It seems like the second season is gearing up to have more Pachinko. Like, they've introduced that character Yoshi, who is going to get into business with Solomon, it seems. So Solomon's embracing the dark side a bit. Which I found a bit odd, because, you talked about that really touching scene where he's sending off Hana, right?
Yeah.
And then almost immediately, even before that happens, he gets Yoshi to help him, push that woman out of her home. So
It's there's a bit of the narrative does kind of suffer from its placement of story beats, I guess, because you just said, there's not that much time to bask in that moment where Hana does pass away, and there's just more darkness, I suppose.
Because it seems like something like the death of Hana would make Solomon into a better person. But it doesn't really. It makes him into a worse person. I guess her final advice to him is just screw them all, fuck them. They I don't know who she's specifically talking about at that point, but she's essentially saying fuck everybody, just get what you can, do whatever you need to get to the top or whatever, and then that makes him turn to Yoshi for help.
It's not really a good message. But let's talk about more the first half, or more the earlier period piece, where it's all about Sunja, really. All that stuff is very faithful to the book, I think.
Okay.
She does...
So the stuff that takes place in Korea?
Yeah, the stuff that takes place in Korea, it's very faithful. Doesn't stray very far. She does meet Ko Han-soo. She does get pregnant. But it's just not really a favorite moment, but it's just Sunja, the actress, she just does such a great job.
I really like the actress that plays her mum as well.
Mum. Oh, actually, no, I did have a moment. That's right. It's when they're eating the rice. The white rice. Yeah, there we go.
And then
I was the
mum gives her the radish. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good.
It's damn, man. It's hit me in the feels. And then when she moves over and then they just eat white rice for granted, it's damn.
Yeah, that white rice, man.
really. Yeah, I think that was my favorite moment in the series. It's just the symbolism that's given to the white rice. They've just done it really well, and they didn't even really build up to it. It's just it starts off with the mother, because at this point, Sunja is pregnant with Hansu's child, but she finds out that he actually has a family in Osaka, and then she suddenly doesn't want to be a part of his life. So Isak, who's a missionary pastor who's really sick, says look, I'll take you to Osaka as my wife. I'll give you that as a freedom, so she doesn't need to live in shame. So she's basically forced to move away from Korea, and then her mother is looking for this white rice, and the vendor is look, I can't give you white rice because it needs to be given to the Japanese Empire. And she's no, I'll pay for such and such. And she eventually convinces him to get the white rice, and it's just yeah, man. And then she boils it and eats it. It's just this really slow, creeping tension until she eats the rice, and it's just it's just rice. I had rice for dinner today,
but it means so much to them. That they can eat their own country's rice. And again, there's that underlying resentment towards the Japanese, even in that beautiful scene. But
I think that's the thing, because the resentment is there, but it's not specifically stated. Like, it's there, you know? But then, yeah, when she goes to, like, Osaka, and then, like, it just hits her that life will never be the same. And it's just like, shit, you know? So the moral of the story is, don't fall for Lee Min-ho. He's gonna fuck you and knock you up.
And eat every grain of white rice on your plate. Don't throw any of it away, because it's precious.
Oh, it is.
No, it's good shit. I think I have to agree with you. Like, the period piece stuff is much more engaging, I found, than the 80s stuff. Yeah, even when they get to Osaka and there's all that, you know, that kind of tension about spies and rebels and stuff. It kind of reminded me of Age of Shadows a bit. Yeah, that kind of.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
and yeah, just the desperation of everybody in that era. It's quite different a vibe to the stuff that's going on in Solomon's Arc.
Actually, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about what was being revealed, and with Kohansu, Radigon, Isak being part of that group. I'm not sure if I remember it, and I was talking to your partner yesterday about it, whether that was actually in the book. Because I think my memory of the book is that Isak is arrested for no reason at all. And you don't find out why. He's just arrested just cause, which is like, I don't know, it kind of maybe made it like worse, because it's just like, yeah, we can just arrest you because we can, because we don't like you or something, which is again one of those moments in the book where, because at that point it's like everything seems to be going pretty well. They've just had a kid, you know, they're managing to make ends meet, but then he's just suddenly arrested for maybe a false claim or something, and then like, yeah, that's there you go. That's there's a resentment there, you know. You think you think you're being looked after, but you're not. You're always being watched.
You know, it's more effective in creating a sense of dread, I think. Like the fact that it can just happen at random. Whereas in the show, I mean, it's not really said yet whether Hansu has ratted on him. It's heavily implied, I think. I think that works more if we're thinking about an American audience, maybe, because it does kind of tie those two story elements together, and it villainizes Hansu a bit more. And I think, maybe they're looking for like a clearer villain in this story.
Because Hansu's not really a villain in the novel. Okay. He does do some villainous like stuff, but he loves Sunja. Even like when Sunja is running away from Hansu the first time, it's like, and he kind of berates her. He doesn't really do that. He kind of just lets her go and has this kind of like longing for her, like during his arc in the book. He's still a big part, but like, yeah, it's, I mean, sorry to our American listeners. I'm sure you guys are cool. But like, yeah, I think generally there needs to be a bit more spelling out for this kind of show. Like, there needs to be people you side with and people you don't, because that's just the art of cinematic storytelling that is probably taught that way. Yeah, it's
just connect everything.
Yeah. There's not much like to leave to the imagination, really. But like, it sounds like we don't like the show. I do really like this show.
No, it's good. It's good.
I think I can't even really give a full judgment, to be honest, because season 2 is not out. So I don't know how they're going to handle some of the what I think the more interesting parts of the book.
No, I want to see more of Yoshi's character. I reckon he's going to do some interesting stuff. It's that guy, guy in Predators. The Adrian Brody Predator movie.
Yeah.
He plays the Yakuza guy.
Yeah, that's it.
I was racking my brain trying to figure out where this guy was from.
That's why his English is so damn good.
Yeah.
He kind of sounded like Christian Bale at points, because there's a part where it's like it's him in the car with Sullivan. I was hearing him talking. It's like, is that Christian Bale? Like, Christian Bale's voice?
I thought he might have been dubbed over, to be honest, because like sometimes when he's talking, the camera's not on him. But
maybe they did.
I looked him up. I think he might be American Japanese.
Yeah,
His name's Louis Ozawa.
So. Yeah.
Or Louis Ozawa, maybe. So yeah, probably his English is pretty good.
Yeah, that's where it's from. I was seeing this dude, he looked familiar.
Yeah, Predators, man. If you haven't watched Predators, you should watch it, because it's an underrated sequel to the Predator franchise.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun movie.
It's good, man. I think it works.
I enjoy Predators. Yeah, I'd say it's underrated.
Do we have anything more to say about Pachinko?
No, I think that's all I have to say about this show. Really, it's go watch it.
Yeah. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to read the book after this, I think, now that I have Tavi's permission.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, guys, what did you think about Pachinko? Did you find it engaging and enlightening, or did you think it was a little too much hating for your taste? Let us know. You can get in touch with us at twoasianblokes@gmail.com. Or you can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation, or you can follow us on Instagram at 2AsianBlokes if you want to see what we're up to. And call your mum. Call your mum on Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah, it's a Mother's Day episode. Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you haven't called your mum, it's too late. Don't call her now because she'll be pissed off, but, give it a week and call her.
Yeah, you can listen to this podcast with your mum. It's a nice and long one.
Guaranteed to put her to sleep.
Yeah. It puts me to sleep, so it's all good.
See you guys. Bye.
See you guys.